I have a feeling you might have struggled just a little bit with this idea of joining in with what God is doing, because it's something that doesn't come that easily to a lot of us. We're busy living our lives, we're doing the things that we do, and seeing God at work in people's lives can sometimes be quite hard. So let me give you just a few tips as we close now this final session about how perhaps we can be more open to what God is doing in people's lives. 3 things, and they'll begin with the same letter, so that should help, shouldn't it? First thing is look. It's so easy to be among these people that we're among, but never actually really look at them, never really see them, never actually notice them. They're just part of the background. I was in Chicago recently, and I met this wonderful lady who was an intercessor for the city of Chicago, and she was telling me a story. She was saying how just a few days before she'd been walking through the streets of Chicago with her 2 small children, and she was asking God to send revival to the city of Chicago. And she was big, and she was just telling me this great story of how she's walking along the streets and saying, Jesus, send your power, Jesus, send your almighty spiritual power to save this city. And I guess was telling God what he should be doing. But as she was praying, she told me, she looked in front, and her 2 small children were walking just in front of her. And after a while, she stopped praying and watched them for a little bit. And as they were walking along the street, these 2 very small young children, they weren't praying like she prayed. They would see somebody sitting at the side of the road and say, God, would you help this person because he looks hungry? Would you give him something to eat? And then a bit further on, they saw a lady pushing a small baby along. And God, that lady looks like she's poor, and she looks like maybe she hasn't got a husband or a nice home to go home to. Would you help her in some way? And as this woman watched her children, she saw the way they were praying was they were looking at people and seeing their need and asking God to meet that need, rather than just telling God what God should do. If you looked at the people that you see every day and really could see beyond just the job they do or the place where they sit, but actually could see beyond that, that could make a real difference, couldn't it? Look. The second is listen. And there's a whole lot of difference between hearing what people say and really listening to what they say. And if you begin a conversation with somebody, if you just begin to talk to them, it's so easy to ask them a question and never really listen to the answer, never really want to find out what's really going on in their lives. But if you do listen, that's when you can so often begin to hear, to discover, to find out what God is doing in a person's life. Where God is at, where they are in relation to God. If we want to know, to discover, to find out what God is doing in a person's life, it's really important that we listen. Look, listen. Third one is love. Unconditional love. Just be there for people. Serve them, love them, care for them. That's something that Jesus told us we should do. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind and strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. It's all summed up in that, isn't it? And if we could look at people and see something of their need, listen to their heart cry as they share their life with us, and then show love in practical, real and deep ways with people, then I think what we would do is be working not for God, but with God, and joining in with what he's doing. That's the action he wants us to take. He doesn't want us, I don't think, necessarily to go out and do campaigns. What he wants us to do is to be like Jesus, to look at people, to listen to people, and to show his love.